Thank you. And you know what? What is your parents' name?
If y'all have the bird farms out there, you married, you single, you got a girlfriend, someone help you out from here, right? Holidays is fast, holidays coming up all the
Okay,
time.
here we get a little deeper. You're a young guy.
So you say to them,
Civil Discourse back again. Here we are. Same guests we had a couple weeks ago. We've got Sin over here, GC, and we've got Mike Jenkins. I'm Paul Papadopoulos, and we're going at it again. We're going to revisit an issue we talked about before: reparations for African Americans from slavery. I want to read you a quick poll. Most Black Americans, 74% favor reparations. 29% of white Americans and 44% of Hispanics favor reparations. But I just want to say, personally, I don't identify as white. I identify as European ancestry from the Mediterranean area. So
Don't they call you El Greco, no?
They do. They always do. We'll start with you, Sin, actually, on this. Have you thought much about reparations, and what are your feelings on it? For your ancestors, do you know if your ancestors were slaves?
Yes, I do.
You do?
For
Okay.
a fact. Actually,
Okay.
my last name is actually not my original last name. It is a slavery-owned name. And it's funny that you're talking about this because I was just saying, like, they don't have enough money to give to the people. And the fact that you know, said your 2 cents, like, they do. Like, we deserve it. Like, the African culture deserves it. Like, we deserve it hands down.
Now, the name, is it a plantation owner?
It is name of a, oh gosh, I'm not quite sure. I will be lying if I say too much. But I'm not quite sure. But I know that my mom, when we were talking about her being from North Carolina, because you know a lot of people migrated to North Carolina, how my last name isn't our last name, it's our slavery name. So I'm not quite sure. I can't go into depth because I don't know too much. But I do think that African Americans deserve it. We're still waiting. We're just going to keep waiting.
So just curious, because I'm a big fan of Ancestry.com.
Yeah.
Some of the research you can get from that. I also love those shows like Who Do You Think You Are? And Henry Louis Gates' show. Have you done any research? Like, do you know the area? Do you know where maybe your mom and dad's ancestors are from in North Carolina? And have you gone any further?
I have not gone any further into that, and it's actually, unfortunately, which I should get more into it, because especially what's going on in the world today and the knowledge that I need to know for my future kids, I feel like I should know that. But I would love to go more deep into it. I just never really took the time out, because I'm not going to say I never had the time. I just never really took the time out to explore that side of me. I just went on with I'm Black.
Okay, well, GC. Now, GC's ancestors are from Africa by way of Jamaica. So they were brought to Jamaica, kind of like a Bob Marley song, right? And I don't know the sentiment. I have a lot of friends that are Jamaican, but I think the sentiment is very different from Jamaicans than it is from people, from African Americans in this country. What's the feeling there? What have you felt or had your family tell you about being brought to Jamaica from Africa? Have they ever talked about it?
To be 100% honest, no. We have not ever, no, that's not really been an issue. And maybe it's because of the fact that when you have a black African American,
Yeah.
and they're considering their circumstances of why they feel maybe disadvantaged or something like that, they're gonna instantly relate it straight to slavery and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you would expect the same thing from a Jamaican.
Yeah.
But a Jamaican that's in America, considering their own, you know,
Yeah.
it's a little bit different, because we're gonna consider the separation that we're coming from in Jamaica, and we're not. That's a whole nother step to relate that to slavery and stuff like that, you know. So.
I wonder if, you know what, you just made me think about something about Jamaica, right? And I don't know what percentage, I have to look it up someday, what percentage of the people are of African ancestry. I feel like a very big percentage, right? So it's very few people who are quote unquote white there. So I think that might be a factor of, if the whole country is basically like 90% of the people are of African ancestry, I think it makes it very different. Wouldn't that make sense?
I mean, it would make sense.
I don't understand how.
I mean,
Well,
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Corey, because a lot of times slavery is taught here that, you have to blame the white man because white man owned slaves, right? And I think it was 12% of the population in the South owned slaves, and they were all of European ancestry, probably I think British and mainly British and Irish somewhat. So they were to blame. If you're going to blame somebody, you're going to blame them. In Jamaica, I don't know. I'm not that well educated on what happened there. I'm assuming it was sugar plantations, things like that.
Right.
So it's probably just one guy owning like this whole big bunch of land and 1,000 slaves or something.
Now, to be honest, I haven't studied enough of Jamaican history for me to be able to speak confidently on any of that. I have bits and pieces of information I might have heard or anything like this, so I'm not really able to speak confidently on.
Well, we will ask this white guy over here. What do you think about reparations for people who have African slave ancestry in the United States right now?
Well, I think it's due. I mean, that this should be paid out. The question that comes down is really is how a person should be qualified. In my opinion, I've always thought, well, maybe the eldest in the family, and then what is their ancestries behind that? Did they have slavery in their family, and should it start there?
So like her grandmother, maybe? Is that the end?
Great-grandmother.
No. Your eldest alive.
Oh, no.
That's what he's talking about.
Oh, yeah, my grandmother. It's just my grandma. My great passed away.
So we would go to her grandmother.
We go to her grandmother. Correct.
And how many descendants does she have? Do you know approximately?
I don't.
So how many kids does your grandmother have? Like your mom's sibling.
I want to say, of what I know,
Yeah.
4.
4, and then they had kids and stuff
4,
like that.
yeah.
So there'd be a bunch.
Yeah,
And then
that's
the
a whole
money.
lot of us.
So you're saying money would
whole
be split
lot.
evenly. What about the grandfather? Is your grandfather still alive?
No, my grandmother deceased.
So it'd be the grandmother.
The grandmother.
And the money would be split
Right.
by her or for her?
Amongst it'd be the grandmother, and then it'd be the kids, and then it'd be underneath.
So each succeeding generation would get less? I'm just curious into the way
I would think
the
so,
formula.
because you
I mean,
think-
it does make sense because honestly, all jokes aside, granted, again, my ancestors, they were in slavery, but me personally, I was not.
Right.
So it does make sense if you put it that way, but then again, it's just like, I need all of it here.
So the older the person, it does make sense they were
Of
more
course,
affected
they
by
were
it.
more affected.
Yes,
My mom,
yes,
had stories about her.
Yeah.
My grandmother snatching her from the water fountain, saying, "This is for whites only."
Yeah.
So hell yeah, my mom deserves that shit.
So in 19, yeah.
Yeah, like my mom was like 66, 67 maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in 1967, I think it became legal in Virginia for a white person and a black person to be married. So that wasn't until 1967. Imagine that.
And that's not too long.
No, and we can think about how recent that is. So the elders deserve. Maybe we can agree on that. I don't know if we all agree. Maybe it sounds. I don't know.
I would consider if you were to give the eldest in the family the money, what would then be the rules? Because what if you give them the money and they say, "Well, I'm going to keep this."
Right.
But you know what?
But
You guys
you're right.
never
And you know
call
what?
me.
I didn't even think of it like that. It's funny because I think it should be like some type of limit, like, or maybe just the whole family, boom, split it.
Would there have to be some kind of laws placed where, because we decided then that we'll have some laws placed where, okay, great grandmother Godzilla, she has Alzheimer's, then what? There has to be many different conditions behind something like that.
She'd have forgot.
Well, when he proposed this to me
forgot
earlier, I thought to myself, he proposed it. I said, well, what happens if Grandma got that $1 million check, and then she married some white dude, and Grandma dies the next year, and that white guy got the money, and so none of the descendants got it.
Well, yes, but that's why we were saying, let's say Grandma is alive,
Right.
and we're saying that the cap is $1 million. how many children does grandma have? Say she has 3 daughters. We don't give grandma the million. We divide the million by 4. So we include her children right away. So there's no discussion as to grandma giving the money to somebody else or not.
Yeah, that's right. And you just gotta have a particular person that's gonna work on that can just.
I wanted to go back a little bit to the Jamaica issue. Daniel, if I can ask you, is there racism in Jamaica? And that is a question that it's kind of open.
Yes.
Yes, there is, but it's not as prevalent as it is here. I ask.
There is. Matter of fact, I really want to say racism. I would say more like kind of like different forms of prejudices where it's just cultural because Jamaicans who are really deeply into the Jamaican culture really don't like to hang out with African Americans or with people with Black Americans.
Wait a minute. We're talking about Jamaica, so how many African Americans do you have there? Not you said African Americans.
Not that I'm just giving an example of the idea of how someone that's from Jamaica will come to America and they're not identifying with the Black Americans.
As an African, there are Jamaicans that does not identify.
But with that mentality in Jamaica, when it's not really racism. Like, okay, this guy's Chinese or this guy's white, because everyone is so. It's just the Jamaican culture. We're in America, it's a melting pot. So we have so many different cultures going on that people are so divided.
Yeah, you have an Indian culture, Chinese culture, or Asian. So are you saying is it more like a classism problem?
Wait, can I interrupt?
In other words, class is what there are rich Jamaicans and there are poor Jamaicans, and that's where you feel the pressure. Classism.
Give me 1 second to interrupt real fast, because we did have a Jamaican guy on here. He'd been here for 10 years. So we asked him this exact question, and I'll tell you what he said. He said it was classism, not racism in Jamaica itself. Like when he was there, he said it had nothing to do with your skin color. It had to do with money. Everything was money in Jamaica,
right?
Not your skin color, because pretty much everyone was similar skin color. It wasn't like
money. Money has a big thing to do with how they're gonna treat you in Jamaica, whether you have money or not. But whether or not you'll be accepted or treated different based on race, that's really not really a big factor, because everything's really just about culture. So you will see just one white dude with all the Jamaican dudes, or the Chinese guy or Spanish guy. You'll see that no one's even considering his race in any kind of way, because he walks off, eats, dresses, everything exactly like you. So the thing that is making you one is not how you look, but the principles and morals and the thing in your beliefs. That is what's uniting the people in Jamaica. So when it comes to someone having differences with other people, and just not accepting each other, then it would boil down to class and things like that.
Now, when we talked about reparations earlier, one of the things that we had talked about was okay, so the person in the family who had to prove it. Someone had put forth the notion that if you could prove you had African ancestors before 1900, you could pretty much say they were descended from slaves, right? And you can find on the census somebody like your grandmother said, well, here's the 1870 census, here's my great-grandfather, he was black on this census. So that probably was a slave. So would that be a good basis for provability? Do you think? Is that enough? Do you think that's a good starting point?
No, because I don't know, because it brings me back to what Black people are going through today. Mm-hmm. It's like, damn, man, we're still going through this shit. It's like we're still being judged because of the color of our skin. So it's like, because now that I'm thinking about it, in more conversation that we're having, it's like, dang, it's like we still do have people to this day that are still being judged because of the color of their skin, whether you're white, black, whatever. So it's like, how would you determine? I couldn't even. Honestly, I couldn't even. Everybody deserves it. Everybody.
Well, everybody who though?
Every African American. I feel like if you have African American descent in your
based
blood,
on what though?
Based on what do you mean?
Okay, Daniel has African ancestry, but he would not qualify for U.S. reparations, right?
No. I think no. Yes, he would. Yeah, he would. You want to
But
know
his
why?
family's not from here, though.
But listen. Get back to me on that. Go ahead.
Wait, time out. No. I just meant that
Because wait.
Jamaica owed him the money. The Jamaican government is my point.
Because he's not from America.
Yes.
Is what you're saying.
That's all I meant.
Yeah, see, now you're going to have to give him some of
Listen,
your money.
Let me tell you. I'm going to tell you
Yes.
why. Yes, because, again, we were brought over here as slaves. So, honestly.
No, but he wasn't. His family wasn't.
But with. Go ahead.
I think they're asking the Jamaicans who have slave ancestry, the ones that are actually in Jamaica.
Yeah.
They're not going to get paid by the American government because it's not American responsibility.
Yes.
Right? Because ultimately, though there were people that, from England, the British, or whoever was colonizing different areas, whatever, it was England who colonized Jamaica. And, after, America separated or whatever, that became, the slaves in America became America's problem. The slaves in Jamaica became Britain, England, and whatever.
So that's the point was,
Right.
let's say the U.S. government can't be...
Well, then, yeah, he wouldn't qualify, but I think it's right. No, it ain't right. Because I feel like, again, like, when you talk about slave, like, they had to go out of America to bring us black folks into America.
No. Time out.
So it's like, if that's the case, it's like, okay, so think about it. It's like,
Let me explain this to you really quickly, real fast. Okay, let's say there's 100 million people of African descent in Brazil, brought there by the Portuguese. Because over 90% of the slaves were brought to places other than the United States, believe it or not. That's true. Over 90% of the slaves were brought to the Caribbean and South America. The U.S. cannot pay all those people in Brazil who are of African ancestry. The U.S. is not responsible for that. The Brazilian government is, or Portugal. Does that make sense? Like, why should the U.S. government have to pay for those other countries?
because the U.S. government's the one who started it.
No, they didn't. No, the U.S. government had nothing to do with it.
No. Well,
Wait, you think the U.S. government had something
I
to do
do.
with it?
I feel like not the U.S.
I'm
government,
sorry.
but I'm talking about the people in general. I'm talking about the people who were working for the U.S. You know what I'm saying? I feel like it all was brought up as an idea, and I feel like every African American culture should be paid because not only are we not exactly from America again, but you know what I'm saying? Like they brought us over here. Like you
Who brought? Wait. See, I think there's a misunderstanding. The U.S. government
So
brought
what do
the
you
slaves over.
okay? So what do you mean when you say?
Let's say that the
he's
Portuguese.
not qualified.
Okay, the Portuguese brought millions of people to Brazil. We'll use Brazil. We'll take Jamaica out of this equation.
Okay.
They brought millions of people to Brazil, right? The Portuguese.
Right.
Portuguese, little country below Spain. The U.S. had nothing to do with those 100 million slaves brought from Africa. So how is the U.S. government in that equation of paying reparations to Brazilians?
Yeah, we're basically talking
Okay,
about...
so now that you put it like that, like, okay, yeah, that's totally different, but shoot, them governments need to hop on board too.
Right, but that's okay. But that's a totally different. But see, that's a totally different thing than
Yeah,
the
so
U.S.
now that you put it like that, then
Right.
yeah, the America, no, there's nothing that they can do about it. We talking about if you're saying it like that, then yeah, like no, there's nothing. If America had nothing to do with what was going on that side,
Yes.
you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Then yeah, like of course they're not gonna. Are you feeling me?
yeah, it's not.
So you
There's nothing to do with it. It's not their responsibility.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
Back to the reparations topic. I think that everybody's focusing on the wrong aspects of reparations. But when it comes to how to go about the process and procedure, I think first people should first question and wonder, well, how did other places like Germany, how did they go about the process of reparations? Because, for example,
Jewish folks, right?
The Jews, right? Let's say relating to what you were saying, when America does reparations, would Jamaican slaves qualify for anything like that? No, I don't. It has not their responsibility. It has nothing to do with that or anything like that.
Right.
But decided to give reparations to the Jewish people, did they find all the Jewish people, no matter where they were scattered out in the world? Like, did they
That's
find,
a good question.
Did they find them, or is it just the ones that are still like, all right, you're in Germany,
Like,
your responsibility, all y'all left
like,
Germany, so let them figure out.
Does anyone have an answer to that?
Well, I think the answer would be this, along the same lines of what we're saying here in America. If, of course, Jewish people were scattered all over the world, that's only because they were trying to escape the Nazis. But again, if you find out whose family died in the concentration camps, then they, no matter where the descendants are, Argentina, Bolivia, whatever, wherever, they deserve reparation. And I don't know that they did it that way, but that would be the logical way.
Right, we were just wondering if they did. Like, what
Well,
happened?
that's for another show.
We don't know. This is a very, very, very difficult subject again when we come to right because there's a lot of misunderstandings. Like, who is responsible for who, where, what?
Who is the responsible person for slavery? Who put it in a mind? That's what I need to know.
Well, actually, I was doing some research.
Like who?
It's
Who
from
even
the
brought
beginning
up
of time.
Like how?
It is from the beginning of time. From when civilization started. Any time people went to war, they took those other people as slaves. So that is how this started. Most of the slaves that came to the U.S. were people that were captured in war.
Right.
Africans fighting Africans. They took them. They said, "Hey, we got these people in a war here. These are our prisoners. You want them? Give me some money." That's how they ended up here. So slavery is not one group of people. I mean, you've heard of ancient Egypt. We all know they had slaves
most
there.
definitely,
They built the pyramids. Ancient Rome and Greece.
That's what I'm saying, but this is what brings it back. Why is it so? You got, why is it so hard?
Why is this still a topic here today?
Like why? It shouldn't even be a topic. Like it's.
So why do these things happen? Because we are evil.
Well, do you know people that live, for example, in the inner city that live in abject poverty that maybe are still in that cycle of slavery in their mind?
Right.
So that's what we're talking about here, really. Is more those people that I think are, when you say deserving of it, like economically, maybe that's what we're talking about.
Is that what we're going to get into in the next show?
Oh yeah.
So anyway, yes, we have to go once again. This is a great talk. We'll have to revisit it again a third time. Thank you. Thank you, GC. Thank you, Sin.
Thanks for having me.